What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Justin here. As always, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today to talk about this bonkers, crazy movie, The American Scream. I picked this up from Vinegar Syndrome's website. This is a Culture Shock release, and this movie can be found for 15 bucks with the limited edition slipcover. I think there was 751 copies left of this bad boy, so let me go ahead and convince you to buy this ridiculous, dumbass movie because I had a blast with it. It's not perfect. It has its flaws. This is a Culture Shock release. This is a extremely low budget 80s surrealistic slasher movie, but it has some charm, okay? You have to kind of wade through some weird shit in this movie, but within the contents of this film is a pretty goddamn entertaining movie, and I had a blast with it, so let's go ahead and talk about it. The American Scream was directed by Mitchell Linden and was released in 1988. Meet the Benzingers. They're the average American family. Two unruly teenagers, a stressed out father, and a cloying mother. They're taking the classic American Christmas vacation at the perfect mountain resort, but the strange residents of Wilson Creek have something else planned, something gruesome. This family trip will be a trip to hell, and no one, I mean no one, will ever be the same again. This film was released from Culture Shock Releasing with a brand new transfer, a couple new special features, 4K scan of the original camera negative, and it looks amazing. Like, this is one of these really great transfer. I just reviewed Frontiers from Second Sight, and that transfer was just abysmal. So watching that and moving right into this, it was just like a stark difference in the transfer. Vinegar Syndrome does amazing. This 4K transfer looks crisp. It looks beautiful. Even the night scenes, which are oftentimes a real tough spot, even with these restorations, it's just tough to get these older, low-budget movies to look good with the night scenes. These scenes are well lit, and the transfer looks it looks so beautiful. I always get a kick out of movies that look so insanely beautiful, that are such like low budget, ridiculous 80s movies. This movie had a budget of just over $200,000 and it looks like $1 million. It really looks great. This movie, to me, this movie really reminded me a lot of if you took Troll 2 and mixed it with a reverse version of Children of the Corn. So like Children of the Corn, the kids inhabit the town and try to kill off the adults. This is reversed and flipped on its ear. So you have this family that arrives in this small, sleepy, wintry town. This is a Christmas horror movie, but there's a little bit of a lack of snow, which is unfortunate for the filmmakers, but this family packs up the car and goes into this weird town for vacation. The family dynamic, the characters of the parents and the kids reminds me of like a Chevy Chase vacation movies. The parents are completely over the top in this movie, singing songs in the car and annoying their kids. The mom has this screechy, high-pitched voice that does get kind of annoying. Some of the characters in this movie are a little grating, but if you can get past that, there's so much wild shit and pretty interesting filmmaking techniques going on in this movie that made I had a great time with this movie. It has a lot of slow spots. Takes a while to get going. There's a lot of slow moments, but the movie overall has such a weird, dreamlike, surrealistic quality that sucked me in, and all of the kills are super weird too. I feel like these type of movies, these just absurd, ridiculous 80s movies are like specifically made for me. I just eat this shit up. For how low budget and silly this little movie is, it does a decent job at trying to build a bit of atmosphere. The score is effective at enhancing the vibes as we go from awkward comedy to cheesy kill scene. I wonder sometimes how if these films that are, these forgotten films that are pulled from obscurity are pulled for the merit of the actual film or just to make a quick buck. And I think a little bit of both applies to this movie, because this movie is like, Vinegar Syndrome does a fantastic job in Culture Shock at polishing turds to hand over to horror fans. Some are hits, some are misses, and this is kind of in between, okay? This isn't an amazing movie, but especially for 15 bucks, it's definitely worth picking up. Throughout the film, there are these weird sporadic bursts of fairly striking filmmaking that makes the film pretty effective. Use of techniques like super slow-mo and intense crash zooms and dolly zooms. These are usually used for the kill scenes, which helps to make the deaths more impactful. There's also this really weird 8mm home video kill scene that was pretty eerie and pretty unsettling. The acting sometimes is not much to write home about, but I think those stilted performances kind of add to B-movie bullshit like this. But honestly, calling this movie just all bullshit would do a disservice to the fact that this movie does do its best to be a compelling chiller, especially with its final twist, and it's just too weird to be dismissed. There's a version of this movie that could be remade into a legitimate modern horror, but I think I'd prefer this dusty video store version of the American Scream. The family pulls up to this sleepy town, which was actually shot in this shutdown resort. So it's got a nice location and this warm Christmas feel. But as soon as the family arrives, they realize that the adult residents of this little sleepy hideaway seem to be not digging the kids too much, and the adults eventually try to start killing these kids. They're calling them children, but these are fully grown adults, which is funny. They're offering the kids like chocolate milk and shit, but they're clearly adults. There's virtually no story to this movie other than the fact that this family shows up for a vacation to a bunch of people that want to kill their kids, and the parents are seemingly none the wiser. Now, I couldn't really decipher what was going on at the end of this movie, but it sort of hints at the fact that maybe the parents know what's going on. That's really not too clear. And also, it's really bizarre that the kids in this movie go from sometimes they're terrified of what's going on, and sometimes they're just having fun on vacation like nothing is wrong. It's really bizarre. But this whole movie has this weird hazy glow to it. All of these strange slow-mo shots, and the kills are handled really nicely. The filmmaker tried to make a legitimate film, and the fact that he was able to make a movie like this for $200,000 is pretty crazy. This film was first put on my radar through an episode of The Rewind Zone on Rue Morgue TV,
where I like to discuss some of the most fucked up, terrible, cheesiest movies made in the 1980s. And today we're going to be talking about one of the most deranged films I have ever seen.
Hosted by Yasmina. I love that girl. She's hilarious. And they covered this movie and all the ridiculous moments of it. For example, and within the first 5 minutes of this movie, and I know this is going to sound disturbing, but it's done so cheesily in such a B-movie way that it's laughable. But as they're driving to the resort, they see this couple. It's like a middle-aged woman and her husband with a baby, and the husband's trying to get frisky with him in the front seat, and she pulls her tits out. There's lots of tits in this movie, by the way, like obligatory B-movie fashion. But as these couple, like the family that we're following, the kids are in the back of their station wagon with their parents looking out the back window, and the car behind them is this couple making out and shit, and just out of nowhere, the mom takes this baby, which is just clearly a stiff baby doll, like a doll, and just starts smashing it against the windshield as blood starts squirting out. And that's within the first 5 minutes of this movie. Throughout the whole movie, it never feels sinister. It never feels mean. This just feels like classic B-movie trash. And I loved almost every minute of it. There's some slow moments, takes a minute to get going, but once they get in the town and once these weird characters and scenarios start happening, I had a lot of fun with this movie. There's that classic bum that played a bum in a million movies. He was in a lot of John Carpenter films. He's in this movie. He's a highlight. And the whole movie has a lot of charm. I suggest picking this movie up if you have the sensibilities of low-budget B-movie schlock. There's a lot to dig into, and I had a fun time with it. As for the actual release, the transfer looks incredible, like I said, and you also get some decent special features. We get a commentary, feature-length commentary from the director and the actor that plays that weird friend that I talked about. It's a really informative commentary, and they talk about filming the movie. There's also a podcast on here that's included talking about the making of the film, Real Collections with Edward Beasley podcast, The Making of American Scream. And we also get an introduction to the film from the filmmaker, which isn't much to speak of. It felt very clinical and didn't really talk about the movie at all. But great release, and like I said, right now it's only $15 on Vinegar Syndrome's website, so pick it up. I suggest it. It's too weird to be ignored, in my personal opinion, and with how good the restoration is and the transfer is on this, there's no reason not to pick it up and add it to your collection for $15. So I recommend picking up the American Scream. I keep on saying American Stream. I cannot say this movie. But if you guys have picked up the American Scream, let me know what you thought of it. Let me know anything else you've picked up lately. I'm always looking for recommendations. But guys, I think we're done here. Stay weird. Remember to always be yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.